Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. I really like, or I'm getting adjusted to doing these virtual calls now, but it gives me more of an opportunity to elaborate on things than just doing the quarterly market perspectives newsletter. So, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this method of delivery. So, I want to take just a little bit of time today. Hopefully, it won't be more than 10 or 15 minutes. If you have any questions, you can actually pose them right through the call here. So, if there's anything we don't address that you'd like us to talk about, be sure and pose a question. But I want to talk just a little bit about looking back over the third quarter, maybe some of this year, and then talk about where we are now and then going forward. And we will get to COVID and the presidential election because I know those are big topics this year. So um, I do, or as we look back over the third quarter, it was interesting to see just this continuation of recovery in both the economy and the equity markets. Um, it was significant. The third quarter GDP, actually, they're estimating will be up about 30% over the second quarter. So we've had a significant recovery in the economy. And that's been reflected in the equity markets too. Because if we remember, equity markets or investors are always looking to the future. And I think this recovery or this recession was so different in that we chose to shut things down to keep people safe. And people know that we'll reopen things and the economy will get going again. So it was a short-lived recession, although it was a deep recession. It was short-lived. And I think that's why the equity markets continue to do so well. And people seem so surprised by that. So we've continued to see that. Earlier in this year, we saw Washington come together with the CARES Act. And it was actually nice to see them come together and do something that was positive for the country during this recession, with aid to unemployed, with aid to small business, also to some crucial industries that were really devastated by this recession. Um, there's talk about more of this, and that's really debatable as to whether or not we need more from Washington at this time. But we'll see if they come up with something. We've gone back to sort of the normal division in Washington, kind of politics as usual. So we'll see if anything positive comes out of there. Now, from the Federal Reserve standpoint, they immediately took action. They came in, lowered interest rates. They've done all kinds of new things, really above and beyond even what they did during the financial crisis. So they have stepped up, kept liquidity, um, helped investors feel safe, within our economy, also within the global economy too. And they have committed to keeping interest rates low for years to come, even hoping to encourage some inflation as we go forward. So the Fed is committed to this, and I think that's probably the most important thing at this point, because I don't know that we're going to get a lot out of Washington as we go forward. But it's interesting. We have now recovered over half the jobs that have been lost since the recession. Employment has dropped now below 8%. Retail sales are back up above where they were pre-COVID. New and existing home sales have spiked this year, which has been very interesting to see. But I think that's more a factor of people have been locked down in their house. And it's like, okay, I want a new house. Maybe some people want a second home or a vacation home. And it's really sort of gotten them to take action. The other thing when we look at retail sales is sales to Lowe's and to Home Depot have absolutely spiked as people want to fix up their homes. And we're hearing that with different tradesmen and stuff that do repairs around people's homes. So that's been a real interesting trend to see is what has done well during the shutdown and then those industries that have really struggled. But as people buy new homes, the other thing that we all have also seen too is a rash of refinancing of mortgages. So new homes refinancing, what that does, especially with the refinancing, is it creates additional free cash flow for consumers. And I'll talk about that in the future. But the other thing with home sales is home sales are a leading economic indicator. And new home sales always lead to new additional purchases, appliances, furnishings, possibly remodels. It's amazing, but home purchases are a significantly positive leading economic indicator. And I'll talk about that too as we look towards the future. The other thing that I think people are probably not aware of, but it's very surprising, but over 1 million new companies have registered this year to start a new company, or 1 million new people have registered to start a new company this year. And it's often during these downturns where new innovation, new technologies, new companies really take hold. And it's exciting to see what happens out of this. And if you look back to the early 80s during that time period, Microsoft and a lot of those really crucial companies in our economy today were started during that time period. So I say, as we look out to the future, innovation, new technologies, new companies, I think we're going to see some companies that were started during this time period that will be really really game changers for our society. Um, and that will kind of just segue into as we transition, as we look out to the future. You know, here we are, October of 2020. We're in a presidential election year. It just seems like every election cycle it gets more contentious, more divided. Um, but having said that, that's that's just kind of where we are. That's par for the course right now. But I'm going to ask Bree if she could. She's going to share a slide. I'm not going to do a lot of slides, but I'm going to do one. And while she's pulling that slide up, I do want to mention if you want more information on kind of historical perspective for the equity markets during the presidential election year, we have reports and things that we can share with you. But what the gist of it is it doesn't really matter who is the president. One of the great things about our country is over time, our economy grows. That's because of innovation, new technology, worker productivity increases, immigration. All of those things have caused our economy to grow over time. And if you look at this chart, you can see that goes back to 1933, and that just shows the growth of the US equity market. Basically investing $1,000 back in 1933, up through the market currently, what that has grown to. The blue represents when there was a Democratic president. The red represents when there was a Republican in the White House. And you can see over time, we've got our blips, we've got our recessions, we've got different things that have happened. Basically, a World War II that happened during this. We've got the 70s, the stagflation. We have all of that. We have the financial crisis. We have 9/11. All of that's built in there. But the thing that's common amongst all of that is economic growth. So that's the one slide I want to share. We do have more historical perspectives, but a presidential election wins the White House is no reason to. I guess that is not a premise for an investment policy statement. Um, Obviously, under a different candidate, we might do some tweaks depending upon tax rates or things like that. But we want to stay invested in the U.S., and that's the main thing that comes out of this. We can expect the news to be very, very contentious here for the next few weeks. I think as far as you look at the equity markets, with the exception of the recession, what we see in an election year is September tends to be a down month. And we saw that this September, the S&P 500 was down almost 10%. But here as we've gone in October, it's recovering again. And what we would normally expect to see is as we get closer to the election, and once we have a candidate that's been nominated, then the markets tend to go up from there. I do expect this year, I don't know if I should expect, there is a very good chance this year that we could have a delayed result because some of the states are allowing voters to send voters in even up through November 3rd. So we're going to have probably a period of time where we won't know for certain who the president's going to be. And I go back to 2000 when we had the Bush-Gore and we had the hanging Chad in Florida. There was some additional volatility in the equity markets, but once Bush was named president, we moved on. And that's fully what I expect to see again this year. If there is a delay, the news is going to be horrible, but we will get through this just like we have in the past. And that's what we have to remember. We're not investing for next week or next month. We're investing for 3, 5, 7 years out. And that's what we have to remember as we go through all of this. So I think the presidential elections, yes, I would limit my news exposure. The other thing that I've been telling everybody, if you have Netflix and have the chance to watch The Social Dilemma, it's a documentary on Netflix. Again, it's The Social Dilemma. Spend the hour and a half and watch it. I think it'll help you, it'll help all of us to understand what social media is doing to us as an individual, but also as a country. We are not getting the same news. And it's important, I think, that we understand this. I have cut Facebook off. I've cut other social media off. We're still doing posts on the Heritage site, but I've cut it off personally. I'm not going to partake in that anymore. So the social dilemma on Netflix. The other thing is COVID. We are going to have a vaccine here more than likely before the end of the year. We will probably have a maybe one or two vaccines available, and probably be working towards herd immunity as we get into midterm or mid-year next year. I listened to a very informative podcast by a vaccine expert yesterday, and she's very confident one of these phase 3 trials we have going in the United States will result in a vaccine that's making a significant difference. That will be available to probably first line workers, as well as maybe some of the more vulnerable population here by the end of the year, and then we'll start working through the rest of the population, those that want to get vaccinated. And if you're worried about not everybody's going to take the vaccine, we don't have to have everybody vaccinated. There's some debates on, do we need 40 or 50%? Is it 60 or 70% of the population to get vaccinated to get that herd immunity? We will get there. And it looks like we will get there by mid-year next year. And I think that's what it's really going to take for people to be out or to get back out doing what they normally do in their life. The industries that have been hurt and devastated so dramatically during this recession, entertainment, travel, leisure, those types of things, it's really going to take you and I getting back out there doing things again for those to come back fully. And that's why I think this recovery may slow a little bit until people begin doing things again. As we look at travel this summer, hotels have been at almost 50% occupancy because people are taking road trips. RV sales spiked like 350% earlier this year. So people are doing things, but they're not jumping on an airplane, taking an international trip and stuff. Airlines are still struggling at about 30% of their pre-COVID capacity. So hopefully, as we get into next year, we will see this recovery begin to accelerate as people are vaccinated. More people that were exposed to it have antibodies, and we're working towards this herd immunity. So I think we just need to be patient. And just take this time to reflect some too. Part of what I wanted to share today here too is just we've had all this happen. I was on a call a few weeks ago, and somebody said, God was upset and put us all in timeout. I don't know why this has happened, but I think this is a great time to use it as a personal reflection. What are some of the things that you were doing, commitments you had maybe in your life that you don't want to take forward? And, I'm in a coaching program, and I was on a call here within the last couple of weeks, and this gentleman took in March some time to reflect and just mentioned, he said, what are things I'm doing now I don't want to bring forward into the future? What are things that I want to do more of? And what are things that I want to experience growth in? Maybe education, maybe learning new things. So he did. He has a stop column, a go column, and an expand column. And he just took time and wrote, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not passionate about that. These are things I want to do more of. And these are areas that I want to expand my knowledge, maybe learn new things. So maybe this is that time to do that. Even if you're still working just as much or more as you were before from home, maybe you're not having to commute. And there's nothing to do after work other than watch TV. So turn the TV off. We know that news is bad for us. We know that watching this stuff is negative. So now, as we look, though, to the fourth quarter and beyond, what are reasons to be optimistic? Obviously, one, I think, is the vaccine. The innovation around this vaccine is phenomenal. It is really changing the way that we will do vaccines going forward, and also drugs as we go forward. It's been exciting to watch this, because back in March, they said it was going to be a year or two out before we'd be even close. We're going to be about 7 or 8, maybe 9 months into this, and we're going to have a vaccine available. So it's just those kinds of things that make me so excited. The other thing is now we're all working remotely, and I don't think that trend will continue. I think there'll be some remote work. I think people will get back to offices because collaboration is so important. But the new technologies that are coming out of this, they're going to be absolute game changers, and it's going to be fun to watch how people utilize this going forward. The other thing that's happened is part of it was the extra $1,200 that many Americans got as part of the stimulus package. But part of it is just we can't do as many activities anymore. But Americans have done an additional $1 trillion of savings this year. There's almost $5 trillion sitting in U.S. money market funds right now, making nothing. Some of that money will go back into the equity markets, which will spur on equity returns. And a lot of that money will get spent on travel, on leisure, on purchasing new things. So as we get into next year, we're going to see this pent up demand. And we don't know exactly where it's going to be, but it will help in the recovery. I mentioned the refinancing before. That frees up money for people to spend as well. So we will see the benefit of all that. All these new businesses that have started, many of them will fail, but a lot of them will catch hold and they'll hire new people. We've been adding about 1 million new employees each week. Now that trend will begin to slow because obviously we can't continue to call that many people back to work, but we will continue to see employment rising. Um, and again, I'm just excited about the innovation, the medical technology. We think back to Tesla and SpaceX, and they actually have been they launched the men to the International Space Station, and then they brought them back, and they're relanding these rockets. It's just there's all kinds of very exciting things to be looking forward to. So let's take this time. Let's stay connected with people. Take care of yourself mentally, physically, and stay connected. You know what I'm sensing as I talk to people is people are just getting worn down. So take care of yourself. It's just so crucial. I think some of the long-term effects of this are we're going to feel for years to come. So be especially vigilant in taking care of yourself. The other thing that's spiked 150% this year is fraud. Be very careful about opening anything in your emails, any text messages, any calls that you get. If you do not know who's calling you or texting you or email, don't answer or delete them immediately. If you're suspicious about the sender, if it's maybe a financial institution or someone you've done business with before, look and see who the sender is. If it still looks suspicious, delete it and call that financial institution. Don't respond to anything because they are getting really, really innovative on their technology and how they're scamming us. And we're seeing more and more of that. And unfortunately, we're hearing some really sad stories. So if it's a text message, delete it. If it's an email, delete it. If you're concerned it might really be your bank, call your bank. Don't respond to the email or the text message or even that phone call. And just because one's been so prevalent right now that I've seen is this: you've got a package to be delivered. The post office, UPS, FedEx, they do not have your cell phone number. Delete that message. What they're getting people to do is to click on it and they're dropping a pin on your phone. So be very careful about responding to anything and spread the word. Spread the word with family if you've got younger kids, because the kids just click on it. But with your parents, everybody be very, very careful. So, in wrapping things up, I just want to say we've been through a lot, but there are many reasons to be optimistic. And we just have to focus on that. We just have to get through this period, take it as a time to reflect, to focus inward on things. Some of the things that we're going to do here is we've had a Christmas dinner that's become a real tradition. We've had it now for almost 20 years, and we're not going to be able to host that this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a virtual event. I think it's on December the 3rd. There will be information that will go out. But what we're going to do is put together a collage, and we're going to ask if you would like to do maybe a 15 or 20-second video with a greeting and maybe something or some things that you are thankful for. We would love to include a little clip from you, because since we can't be together, we're going to try to do something that would represent some of the folks that are in the Houston area that normally come, but we'd also like to include those of you that are not in the Houston area. So if you'd like to participate in that, take a little risk. We got to do something different. This is a new time period, so we're all using the virtual stuff, so we'll help you with that too. But please let us know. There'll be more information to follow on that. And then just a little housekeeping. We have a new phone system that's starting on Thursday. If you try to reach us and you can't contact us by phone, please email us. I think everything will go smoothly, but you just never know. So I was going to ask Bree if any questions have come in during the call, because essentially everything that came in prior to the call was around the election. And I think, you know my opinion on that is let's not change what we're doing today because of the upcoming election. Let's get through this, and we'll determine if there's any tweaking that we would need to do as we go forward. But Bree, is there anything from anyone on the call today?
There are no questions.
Okay. Well, then I just want to thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you felt that this was useful. And if we don't, I'm sure we'll talk to you beforehand, but if we don't, we will see you then on the first quarter call of next year. So Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk soon.